This episode of the Hunt Stealth podcast is brought to you by ReadyWise Outdoor.
As a hunter and outdoor enthusiast, you need food that's not just convenient, but also nutritious. That's why I trust ReadyWise Outdoor. Their pro meals are designed to fuel your adventure, packed with over 30 grams of protein and more than 500 calories per serving, keeping you energized when you need it the most. Favorites like the Thai coconut cashew curry or the protein-packed breakfast skillet are not only delicious, but ready in minutes. Just add water. Plus, their freeze-dried technology keeps these meals lightweight, which are perfect for extended trips. Whether you're deep in the backcountry or preparing for a weekend camping trip, ReadyWise has your back with meals that give you the stamina you need to go the extra mile. Their meals are made locally here in the U.S. and come with a 15-year shelf life. So head on over to ReadyWiseOutdoor.com today and explore their pro meal bundles, because your outdoor pursuits deserve great-tasting, high-quality meals. And be sure to enter promo code Ryan20 to save 20% off at checkout. That's Ryan20 to save 20% off at ReadyWiseOutdoor.com.
Need a cooler that keeps your food and drinks ice cold on your next adventure? Look no further than Blue Coolers from Caddis Sports. With the industry-leading insulation and rugged durability, these coolers are perfect for camping trips, tailgates, and all of your outdoor adventures. The built-in wheels make transportation a breeze, no matter how heavy the load. Whether you're fishing, hosting a barbecue, or at deer camp, Blue Coolers has you covered with unmatched performance at an affordable price. Blue Coolers are made right here in the USA, so get yours today at caddissports.com. Be sure to use promo code Ryan10 to save 10% off at checkout. That's Ryan10 to save 10% off at caddissports.com.
You're listening to the Hunt Stealth Podcast with Ryan Uffens, the podcast where we dive headfirst into the wild. Whether you're an aspiring hunter or an adventurer seeking the untamed, together we'll explore the strategies and stories that lead to success in the great outdoors.
Welcome to another episode of Hunt Stealth, and we've got joining us today Brandon Wimpey. Brandon Wimpey's a friend of mine from the gym. He is probably the fittest, healthiest guy that I've ever come across. He is the owner of iHeart Macros. He's been in the health and fitness space for over 20 years. He owns gyms, and he's constantly trying to help me get better at my hunting game and be able to handle some of the health and nutrition stuff that's going to make me excel. So, Brandon, we're excited to have you on the show today.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it. Thanks for the kind words. And being the healthiest man, that's a feat that I've been able to conquer. Then you must not know too many healthy people, but I'll take the title for now.
It's yours. It's yours. You own it right now. Hey, so I want to kind of just dig into it. There's, when people come out and they first start getting into hunting, and there's, like we were talking about a little bit before, you've got guys that hop on a Ranger and walk 100 yards and pull out the rifle, give it a shot, load up an animal. And then you've got other guys that will kind of go into the backcountry. I mean, some of them will literally fly in and drop off. If they're doing that, they're probably a little bit more prepared. But I remember when I started hunting like 4 years ago, how I thought I was prepared, but being, up in the elevation and that it's can be tricky. So why don't you touch on, if you would, share a little bit about your insights and what people can do to kind of prepare for some of those more backcountry hunting experiences that they go out on.
Yeah, well, I think you've prefaced it very well as far as preparation. I think that's really what it comes down to, because a lot of these hunters are going to be in different situations. And, whether you're a new hunter or an experienced hunter, the preparation that you're going to put into the weeks and months prior to the hunt starting is going to be where you're going to build that preparation, because the last thing you want to do is find yourself in a situation that you're not prepared for, especially physically, because it's a very physically demanding sport. Whether you are, like you said, the guy that takes the Ranger in, I mean, even harvesting an animal, getting the animal off the ground, putting it back, all of that process takes preparation physically, mentally. You're going to have to be prepared. And so I think we need to talk about what preparation looks like, despite the level of hunting or the kind of the extreme nature in which you're participating in the sport. Is that most guys can't just hop out and start walking 10 miles a day and prepared to pack out an animal, if that comes to fruition at the end of that hunt or even that day. So I think being ready, I think we should be stewards over our bodies no matter what sport we're engaged in. And the fact that hunting is so physical, I think that we need to be preparing all year long. I don't think it's one of those things, especially for the guys getting into the backcountry, putting their hiking boots on, packing in, miles a day. It's got to be time to prepare. And I think, the question is, what does that look like? You've experienced it, Ryan. I mean, you've felt that physical pain. You go through that process, whether it be, hopping on an elliptical, hopping on a stair stepper, getting your boots on in the summertime and getting out and put the miles in. What is it that you do? I'm curious as far as being physically prepared. I know you're a big MMA guy, and that's a whole nother feat in itself, and just being your cardiovascular, your muscularity, endurance, those kind of things. But I'm curious, in addition to that, what do you do?
So one of the things that I've tried to incorporate into at least like twice a week, and you've probably seen me do this, is I'll, like, in between sets, whatever I'm working, I'll grab like 2 45-pound plates and I just do a loop around the gym. And I actually measured it when I do that. When I do it, there's times that I do it every, like between every set. And I think I did like 0.75. So just like 3/4 of a mile. And that, the good old fashioned farmer carries. I mean, that's the one I feel like that's really kind of just given me the endurance to the mental, because 45 pounds is not a lot, but when you're doing it in between like sets, other things that you're doing, whether it's upper body, lower body, it helps with your grip strength, which is, going to be extremely crucial when you're out there trying to draw back your bow and hold it for the right shot to come up. Right. The other thing, a buddy of mine, Casey Harbitson, who is one of the founders of Mountain Ops, he told me, he's like, hey, just hop on the stair machine. That stair machine is going to be your best friend and help getting you ready, because when you get out there up into, the Uinta Mountains and things like that, it is a grind, and you can get into some steep areas. The other thing that I'll do kind of like in the spring when it's not so hot, is I'll throw like a 40-pound bag of salt in my pack, and I'll just start going up into the mountains. And as I come down, if I'm feeling my knees a little bit too much in it, I'll just stop and dump some of the salt out of that, out of the bag, and let the deer come and feast on it for a little bit. But as far as I like the lower body strength, just like that endurance to keep grinding, because if you find an animal and you have to put a stalk on, you are going to be going up and down different valleys trying to get to that animal, especially, when you're doing an archery hunt, because you have to get within 70, 80 yards, if not closer, to be able to harvest that animal. So those are kind of some of the main things that I've done.
No, I think it's perfect. I think, just to touch on grip strength, talk on the fact that you're doing those old fashioned farmer carries. I mean, and I don't want to get too much into the weeds on the studies and everything, but when it comes to longevity, because, we're both in our 40s and we're not getting any younger by any means. And I want to be doing these kind of things into my 60s and into my 70s. And again, we're talking about preparation, and you know what I mean? I want to be a steward over what I'm doing, and I want to be doing this for a long time. And so I really challenge, your listeners to really think about not just this season, not just the season that we're currently in, but next season and in 10 years from now. And that has to be a part of the game all year long, because just doing these seasonal, things, it makes it harder to get ready. And everybody's at different levels, but if you can make sure that you're doing something hard every day, and whether that's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whether that's an hour, whatever that looks like, you should challenge your body every day in some capacity. And I think that allows us that longevity, that long-term view of where we want to be doing. We want to be hunting with our kids. We want to be able to be, getting into the backcountry well into our 70s and maybe even to our 80s, who knows, but we've got to be prepared with that. And I love the fact that you brought up that grip strength, because they have studies that directly show longevity is tied to your grip strength. And that's just a muscularity thing. That's just a strength thing. But I've got a buddy along with the stair stepper. I have a buddy that he's one of those guys that'll, avid hunter. He gets dropped off into the backcountry in Idaho, for 10 days every year. And he's by himself, man. And I think especially for solo hunters, and most of the guys that are in in that world that are doing those solo hunts. They've been doing it. They're prepared mentally and physically to put up with the conditions, the weather, the physical nature of being in the backcountry by yourself, and then harvesting an animal at the end of it, if that's the outcome. So I think that if I could encourage everybody not to make it a seasonal thing, be ready for the season. But I think as men should be physically prepared to tackle a vicious hunt any day, anytime, anytime we need to, because for me, I can get out into the weeds in a lot of things. But if the world comes to it where we had to live in and as a hunt itself, we should always be ready to do that. And it just takes a little bit of effort every single day.
So Brandon, let me ask you something. I agree. And, when you talk about your friend getting dropped off into the backcountry, I've talked to a couple other guys, and when it's those solo hunts, I mean, you hear the cliche, like no one's coming, because when you get dropped off, like you could be anywhere out there. So you have like a place you have to get picked back up. And I think to your point of doing something hard every day kind of gives you that mental resiliency to be prepared for anything. Like you said, at any given time, if something came up and you had to go out and live in a way, I think of, I'm drawing a blank on what the name of the movie is, but it's the one where the Russians come, right? The 80s movie, and like the Wolverines, right? They call themselves the Wolverines. I don't know why I can't remember the name of that movie. But anyway, like you have to go out and you might have to do hard things. Now, I personally think the election went a long way just this week. That's going to set us up for some good times ahead. I don't think that means that there's not going to be any tough times. But I mean, we as a country and as you had said, as men, like we've got an opportunity to really kind of set ourselves apart from what we have been, and to be mentally prepared and diligently prepared to handle whatever comes our way. So to your point, when you say you're thinking of the grip strength, and you said do something difficult like every day, like what are some things that come to mind that you think of that people could do to kind of challenge themselves to do something difficult every day?
Yeah, I think one of the no-brainers for me, and one of the simple things, and this is a little bit out of just the physical nature of things, but just getting cold, whether that's a quick cold shower, whether that's 30 seconds underneath the shower, no one likes it. There's not a person on the planet that's just like, yeah, I just love being under cold water for a duration of time. I think that's an easy thing. That's a more of a mental hard. I mean, obviously it physically is terrible as well, but anybody can get through 30 seconds of cold, but it's one of those things that tees you up to be mentally prepared. I call it reps. You just got to be getting in the reps. And if you're experiencing what hard feels like, because we naturally avoid, I somewhat feel like I'm talking to a bunch of warriors out there about war. And so it's kind of a cliche to be telling these hunters and these rugged individuals how to do hard things, because they're already obviously, very good at that. But I think, that's a simple one, being cold. The other thing is you got to move your body, man. One of the biggest things, I come from a medical background. I come from an orthopedic background. One of the biggest breakdowns of body is just lack of mobility, lack of flexibility. And again, if you're the big burly guy, you got to stretch, man. You got to move your body. You got to open up that lower back. You've got to stretch out those hips, because as soon as that stuff starts shutting down, you're going to be less and less mobile. So take
that's
5 minutes.
That's
10
something
minutes,
that I've
stretch.
experienced and had to deal with, is that mobility. Because it's like, especially when I started doing jujitsu, like I found out how immobile I really was. It's like you can go to the gym and you can lift heavy weights and you can do things, but if you don't have that mobility, I mean, it really, really hampers you. And in my opinion, what I've experienced, it leads to injury. So like you said, we're not young bucks anymore. I go play softball, tear my hamstring over the past 3 years. This is how bad my mobility's been. 3 years ago, tore my right hamstring playing softball. 2 years ago, I tore my plantar fascia tendon in my right foot playing softball. In April, tore my left hamstring playing softball. I've gone through the proper recovery, and I've got all the muscles activated and working again. But now I'm kind of going through this phase right now where I'm trying to get like that mobility, like the real mobility back.
Yeah.
And when you have muscles that you haven't been using, and you've been focused on the others, you have scar tissue that's built up. You have there's anyway, I could go on and on about myself, but that's not why we're here. So
Well, it
yes,
has a lot
I
to do with
agree,
it,
and
though,
I
man. It has a
apologize
lot
I
to do.
interrupted you there, but yes, the mobility is a huge factor in just being able to enjoy all aspects of your life.
Man, your experience though is so common, and what you feel and those feelings of being injured and being recovered and going through that process. We've all been there. We've all done that. But the key is going to be to avoid that. And so to that, doing hard things, stretching sucks. Stretching's not fun, man. And it takes time, and it takes consistency, because you can't just do it once in a while. And so find a stretching routine. I know it sounds, a little bit demasculating to hop on the floor and try to touch your toes and move your lower back and, do those kind of things, those hip rotation, those lower back rotations, but it's going to make you feel a million times better. And it doesn't take a ton of time. And so don't make time the excuse on why you're not doing those simple things. And so I really challenge you guys to take 10 minutes and just do some air squats, hop up on your back, and just throw one knee over to the other side, throw the knee over the other side, open up that lower back, do those stretches to keep your lower back and your hips opened up. That was going to make getting into shape so much easier.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. On top of that, like what are some other things like that you would recommend people doing as far as training for some of those backcountry hunts rather than, you get the mobility and stretching, all that done. Like what would you suggest people move into next just to try and physically be prepared?
Totally. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the three. So you've got your cardiovascular, right? That's going to be how far can you go? What's your endurance like? Can you spike your heart rate? Can you bring it back down? As soon as you go out, can you walk a mile? Can you hike a mile? And what does your lungs feel like? What's your heart rate feel like? Do you feel like you're going to die just walking up a flight of stairs? That's going to be something that, your cardiovascular is going to play a huge role in those long days, hiking through the backcountry, getting out, scouting, doing all those things. And so being able to get to the mountain, being able to get through that tough terrain is all going to be, focused around keeping your heart rate. That's going to go to your stair stepper guy, right? If you can hop on a stair stepper 30 minutes, 3 times a week, anybody should be able to do that and be sweaty, be uncomfortable. That's my starting point for most people. Is it's like, look, if you're mobile 3 times a week, 30 minutes, you should be to the point where you're sweaty and uncomfortable for that 30 minutes. That's where I'd start. And then you need to have strength. You need to have a certain level of muscle. You need to be able to have that strength to move. You need to move and hike. That takes a lot of strength. So I always just say, look, we're all at different levels fitness wise and our time capacity to be able to do it, whether we're getting into a gym, whether we're doing air squats in the garage or the barn, whatever that looks like. You should be moving something heavy. You should be able to pick up something heavy. You should be able to squat something heavy, and you should be able to push something heavy. And that's a very kind of basic overview, but your muscularity, your strength. Are you strong? Can you get stronger? The way to do that is just by moving heavy things. Obviously, there's a lot of gym protocols that you can use, but I wouldn't even get too far into the weeds unless you're an advanced lifter. Your bench, deadlift, and squats, something that everybody should be able to do. And it doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to have a gym membership. All those things can be done fairly easily. A push is what? A push-up. Instead of getting under a bench press and trying to push a bunch of weight, how many push-ups can you do? How many air squats can you do? Lunges, those kind of things, all focused around strength. And that's all going to be tactical response when you're moving through the mountains, when you're carrying a pack, when you're unloading things, when you're loading things, all that's going to play a role into it. So again, heart rate, get your heart rate up, be breathing hard 3 times a week, and move something heavy. That's my basic protocol. And then of course your mobility is going to just make you even much better at doing those things.
Perfect. No, I appreciate that. So, Brandon, what This is my nemesis right here, and you know this because I've talked to you about it multiple
Yep.
times from the
I know
nutrition
where you're going.
standpoint.
Sure.
What's that?
I know where you're going with this. Yep.
So the nutrition. Well, good. Then take it from here. What do you recommend? Like how? So like a guy like me, like I've got decent cardio. I can go in the backcountry. I can go for about 3 hours straight, up hills, down hills. A lot of people probably look at me at the gym and they're like, no way that guy can do that, but I can. And then, I've got decent strength. I have enough that I can do the things that I need to do. But my kryptonite is getting my diet dialed in. And I have peaks and valleys. I get really good and I start seeing results, and then I allow myself to fall off. But anyway, I'm going more into the weeds on me, but what would you recommend to our listeners would be like a good just nutrition plan, and like basic, and what are some things they could do so that they could maintain it and keep success? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, you don't give yourself enough credit. I've watched Ryan change his physique over a couple year period. He's lost a bunch of weight. He's gained strength. He's done amazing things with his physique, and it's impressive to me because it's a control thing, it's a consistency thing, and it's a stewardship thing. Because we should be stewards over our bodies just as we are over our finances, over spirituality, all of those things. If you can't move and you don't have strength and you feel like crap all the time, what good are we? And so I commend you, Ryan, for the the improvements that you've made. And I think we have to embrace the peaks and valleys. I'm not going to be the guy that's going to give anybody the excuse. We all have enough time. We all move. It takes very minimal effort to be able to do it. We just have to be conscious of it. If we're gaining weight, what's the problem? We're eating too much. We're putting too much in our mouth. We're not being aware of what we're eating. And so anybody that has the desire can pay attention and take control of that stewardship of weight. I mean, the biggest cause, when we're talking about your heart, when we're talking about, just excess weight. And so anyway, I know I will be aware that everybody's at different levels physically. I'm fully aware of that, but we should all know that if we're gaining weight, we're eating too much, and we need to, that's where we got to start there. And as simple as it is, if we're eating too much and not moving enough, those are the two things that we need to go to. So let's talk nutrition for a second. Going back to the two things when I'm talking about adding muscle, having muscularity, having enough strength to be able to move through the backcountry, pack out, those kind of things. Protein is going to be key. All right. So protein is going to be the building block to gaining and maintaining a muscle. We all have a certain amount of muscle mass now. We're going to have to, there's a minimum level of protein that we're going to have to intake daily to maintain that muscle. In order to grow muscle, we're going to have to obviously keep that consistent and increase our protein, most likely from where we're all at. My thing with as many clients as I've worked with, I worked with individual clients for years. Most people are under eating protein. Okay. Now you guys all have plenty of meat in the fridge. Now you just have to eat it, and you have to be consistent with it. And so what does that look like? There's a general sense of a number. You should be at least eating, they say your body weight in grams of protein. And I challenge you this. There's plenty of apps out there. Ryan knows this. He's done it for a lot of years. Just track your protein. If you eat something, there's a scanner, you can scan it, you can track it. Even if you do it for a week, 2 weeks, you should know where your protein's at, because most likely you're under eating protein. Okay. And I can't emphasize that enough. And now the biggest variables are going to be your carbs and your fats. And I don't want to get too into the macro weeds. It's what I do. It's my sandbox that I play in. But for most people, and probably for your audience, it's just like, look, man, I just don't want to be gaining weight. I want to feel good in my skin. I want to be able to be strong and be capable. And so as long as you're getting enough protein in, I would imagine that you're keeping your calories under control. That's just a broad statement to say. So if I can just emphasize that, and again, it's kind of tough because it's like, look, I can tell you what I've eaten I have tracked every meal for the last year. I can tell you exactly what and when and how. It's all tracked and timed, but that's not the case for most people. If you want to go to that level, that's definitely available to you. But if you're just trying to be aware and be conscious of what you're eating, if you're gaining weight, you're probably eating too much. And that's kind of a general sense. Ryan, you've done lately keto. I think that's a huge thing probably for your audience. That if you're needing to lose weight, I'm telling you that is a place to start. And I'll preface before you mention your experience with it, Ryan, I'll just say, I don't think it's sustainable for a long time for most people, but it's a very, very good tool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And I agree with what you said about the protein. So I am I say I'm 6'3". My wife says no way. But I'm currently 230, right? So I know you don't want to get into the macros, but just as a point of clarification for somebody who maybe doesn't understand that, so I should be eating 230 grams of protein to maintain, correct?
That would be my recommendation. Now that may be hard depending on where you're coming from. Like if you've been eating 100 grams of protein and I'm telling you to more than double that's probably not going to be necessarily doable. It's just, that's a big lifestyle change. That's going to be a big focus change. But if I had the perfect thing for you, the perfect diet plan, most likely you'd be in that range. Yes.
Okay. So, and with that, my point in clarifying that is when I force myself to get that much protein, I am not hungry.
Yes.
And so it makes it a lot easier because like me doing like the fats and protein and keeping my carbs very, very, very limited. I try and keep it under 50 when I'm doing keto.
Mm-hmm.
It worked. I mean, and it worked fast. I mean, when you start doing that, well, you can probably speak to this better, but my personal experience is I started doing it. I dropped about 5 pounds of water weight in a matter of like 2 or 3 days. All the aches in my joints over the course of the next 2 weeks kind of went away. I dropped probably 12 pounds of body fat and it was, you get going good and you can kind of allow yourself. I wasn't perfect with it. I'm not. That's, like I said, tracking my food intake and monitoring what I eat is like my kryptonite. Like I can do a lot of things and maybe, when you say do something hard every day, I mean, that hard might have to be me just tracking my freaking like food intake.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, I had clarity, like my brain fog went away and then you go on vacation and you're trying to do good. And then it's like, oh, like, hey, the family, like, let's just go grab some ice cream. And before you know it, like you allow yourself to have an ice cream and then you can kind of spiral out of control. But, I don't want to lose a bunch of weight. I would like to drop some fat still. So it's something that I'm working on and I'm going to continue to work on. And at some point I'm going to be able to like kind of get over the hill and really manage it. But I think that's a key one. Like I said, if you focus on getting like your protein in, you really don't have a need for anything else. Now, I will say this, I did turn into a bit of an asshole when you stop eating sugar because it is insane to me. I mean, they talk about like there's basically like microbes like in your gut that start shooting notifications up to the brain saying, hey, dude, I mean, it's probably similar to like what a drug addict might experience. It's like you get these cravings and I try and monitor that a little bit, but if you're really doing it, and you're sticking to it, you'll notice that as you go through that, if you're somebody who has a lot of sugars and a lot of carbs, your body starts to go through a change. And the crappy thing is like, I'm back on it now. I've started it. I'm about 2 weeks into it and I haven't been great, but it's I don't know, man. That's the one thing.
Do you
that
feel
I wish
like
I
that's
could get a handle
the
on.
whole duration of when you're dieting like that or when you're eating like that, or is it just for the first 5 to 10 days?
No. What it's maybe about like, yeah, probably 5 to 10 days is when, like,
Okay.
for me personally, at least that's when it's like the first 5 days. If I can get past the 5 days, like I have them after that, but it's like, I'm like, I know why I'm doing this now. Right. Like now
Yeah.
I'm into it and I'm committed to it. If you get past the 5 days, it's, the wife, we're talking about going out tonight. I'm like, I'm not getting ice cream tonight. You want to get ice cream? That's fine. I'm like, don't freaking let me order ice cream tonight. Cause
Yeah.
like, that's also like ice cream is like, that's like my go-to jam. Shout out to Blacksmith Creamery here in Davis County. But anyway, that's the one thing is just those first couple of days, like, and here's the other thing too is I'm like, oh well, I'm okay. I'm wanting to lose weight, so I'm like, I don't have to get all those proteins in, and so at the end of the day, I'm still hungry, and I allow myself to snack and maybe cheat a little bit more than what, well, not a little bit more, just I cheat, like grab a handful of something just to hurry and kind of satisfy myself so I can go to bed.
Yeah.
And my wife does the intermittent fasting and she sticks to it, and she has like a mental fortitude that I just don't have when it comes to diet. It's frustrating, but I'm also impressed by it as well.
Yeah, look, guys have a hard time, man. That's just the reality of it. And I don't know what it stems from. I think a lot of it has to do with the aesthetics. We don't care as much as our wives do about how we look. And so the drive to like really be perfect on diet. I mean, even men and dieting are not those two things don't necessarily even go together because it's not masculine to diet, and that's why when it comes to it, I recommend for most guys. And again, I want to be cognizant of the fact that we've got guys that are super fit and know all of this stuff, and then there's guys that are just like, man, I don't think I'll ever be able to do this, and I think it's just having a plan. This sounds silly, but like if you don't, it's just like your finances. I relate your fitness and nutrition heavily to like how you balance your checkbook and manage your finances. You can just spend all you want, but you're going to pay the consequences at the end of the day for whatever your frivolous spending led to. But if you know what your budget is and you just say, hey, look, this is where I'm at and this is where I need to end up, then you'll end up where you plan to end up at if you just stick to the plan. And so it can be as basic as just like, just eat these 4 meals a day. If you eat some eggs for breakfast, you have some chicken for lunch, you have a protein shake, and then you end your dinner with some sort of meat, whether it be, ground beef or something like that. If that's just the plan, like I need to eat 4 protein meals a day, then start there. Then that's a great place to start. And if like you'd mentioned like kind of cheating and doing that kind of stuff on your diet, like if you're the guy that's just like, look, I'm going to plan that I'm going out with my wife on Friday night and I'm going to have ice cream and I'm not going to feel a bit guilty about it between now and then. I'm going to have my ice cream on Friday night and then I'm going to move on. If you're that type of person and that resonates with the mental side of just being a steward over your body, over your weight control and over your diet, and just, let's just be honest, how you feel. We all want to feel masculine and tough and feel good and just being healthy. And like we're talking about, this is all purpose driven. We're trying to be capable men that are capable of doing these hunts and these physical activities. And it happens all year long. We're preparing for it all year long. And so having a plan, whatever that looks like, like you, Ryan, like, okay, hey, look, I'm going to go out and I'm going to have some ice cream or I'm not. And if I'm not going to have ice cream, then if I'm going to do something down the road, I just need a plan for it so that it's not derailing. And I think that's the biggest thing that most people feel like, oh, I can't do this. I just fall off the bandwagon. We're like, no, it's part of the process. We're going to have ice cream. We're going to have cheats. But if you can say on Wednesday night, hey, Friday night, that sounds good. Let's do that. I'm going to plan to have 2 scoops of ice cream. And then, like you say, if you can have that mental fortitude, be like, and that's enough. That's my plan. That's when I'm going to be done.
Yeah, no, I think it's great advice, and it just gives you an opportunity to, like if that's coming too, it's like, maybe give you a little bit extra willpower to, withstand that temptation. But the other thing too is, like you said, plan that. Like I'm having eggs, I'm having chicken, protein shakes. I remember asking you, you're like a 2 protein shake a day guy, right?
Yeah.
And then you have like, a decent meal with some protein at night. If you're making sure that you're getting the protein, when I did that like religiously, I was like, I couldn't eat anything else. I'd
Right.
sit down with like plate to finish off my protein for the day, because I knew I had to get, another 50 grams. And I'm going, I don't know how I'm going to eat this.
Yeah.
And I'm not tempted to go get anything else. I'm just looking at this like steak sitting there that I've got cut up, and I'm like, it looks delicious, but I'm going like, man alive, like I got to put this away. And yeah, but it's silly. And to the planning part, that's something that I haven't done as I've gotten back on it. And it's so simple because it's things that like, I know, like, right. People know what they need to do.
Yeah.
But if you don't plan it out and you don't have like a course of action to do that, it makes it hard. We've talked about this. There's people that go like, oh, it's hard to plan out your meals. It's hard to do. And I'm looking at people like they eat McDonald's every day, or they go to Wendy's every day, or they go to Tony Burgers or any other restaurant. Like oftentimes I feel people eat the exact same thing. And for me, when I plan that, it makes it a lot easier because I have like the same thing for breakfast pretty much every single day. And get up, have a protein shake, go to the gym, come home, and then it's eggs. And I'm really good about that. But then I go to work and I start working and I don't eat and I don't eat and I don't eat. And the next thing I know, it's the end of the day. I've had a meal. Then you get ready for bed and I'm still hungry. And it's just the little simple things of just making sure that you're taking care of yourself, getting that protein in. I agree with you. And you've been preaching that to me for years now. So maybe this is the time that it sticks.
Yeah, it will. And again, I think it's just part of the process, man. And your understanding continues to increase, and you know yourself and your body and what it's capable of, and the tips and tricks that you've learned. And that's what it is. This is such a long game. I tell all my clients that this is a long game. We can do something for 30 days. You can be on it, but who gives a shit if you're not going to stick to it for 6 months and a year from now? It's like, let's figure out what you can do and what you can stick to for the long game. And instead of thinking about being on diets and thinking about being on a protocol or a plan, like, no, we're just healthy people and we make healthy decisions. I mean, you guys are out there, hunting and living in the wilderness and stalking game and I mean, this is an extreme that you guys are a part of. I mean, these guys are doing this kind of thing. And so to be able to know where you're at with your food and just say, hey, I'm getting enough protein in, or, hey, you're the type of people that will do this and that can do this, but it's a process because we have to be able to do this for a very long time. And if you don't know where to start, and this isn't a plug by any means, but find somebody that knows what they're doing and that can help you hold yourself accountable until you can make the habits, rituals, and routines to stick to it yourself. And again, it can come in ebb and flows. It's just don't stop. That's the biggest thing. It's just don't stop. I mean, we need to be prepared, and that's all I have to say. And it's just being physically prepared, being physically ready for whatever's coming. And if that's a hunt, if that's, you blow a tire and you're 30 miles outside of town, it's like, we need to be the type of guys that can take care of these situations.
No, 100%. And that consistency is at the core, I think, of everything, whether it's your cardio, whether it's your diet, whether it's your strength training. I mean, it's the same thing. Like, I shoot my bow every day. Even if I go out and I just take 3 shots, like it's 3 shots, I do it every single day. And it's something that has made me just, I've talked about it before. I'm comfortable shooting something like 80 to 110 yards away. And
impressive.
But it didn't start like that.
Right.
I mean, I remember the first time I took a shot at 80 yards. I mean, I was shooting down by this field just below my home, and the arrow sailed. As a matter of fact, the first shot I took at 30 yards, I never found the arrow. So then I got good at that. I'm like, I wonder if I could like stretch it out. And so I get it out to 80 yards. Again, completely missed the target. It just like flies off. I remember drawing back and I'm sitting there and I'm just like watching this thing and I'm like, oh, I'm going to freaking smoke this target. I let it go and I'm waiting to hear like the thud. Nothing. I'm like, where, like, where did that thing go? And I went down there and was so flustered and walked away. But I also have an extremely long draw length. So there is something that probably benefits me because I've got such long arms is when I get at that farther draw length, my wiggle goes away. So when I'm aiming at a closer target, it's harder for me to keep the pin. I get settled back at an area where it's those longer shots are easier for me because I don't have to have as much body control to keep my pin floating on the target. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's good. But it's not, I mean, I'm not saying that it's all skill. Like it helps that it's like guys, right? Like I see guys at the gym that they go and can just crank up like 250, like it's nothing. Their arms are shorter. And it's like,
Right.
so like they can do that. I've got these long arms. And so like, I've always struggled on the bench and I just like, it is what it is. But you know, as we talked about just the consistency, I had read a quote last night and it said like, if you throw a bucket of water on a rock, nothing happens. It gets wet. But if you have a drop of water, drop on it consistently every day, it'll make a hole in the rock. So that's I saw that and I really like that. And I think just in all aspects of our life, consistency creates discipline. And when it just becomes part of your habit and things that you do, like your non-negotiables, you do it. And I've added a lot of things to my plate over the last several years. And yeah, I've made some sacrifices in where I put my consistency, but kind of, I mean, everybody goes through that. You have times and phases in your life where you kind of reevaluate and put different emphasis on different things of your life. And yeah, but wanting to be physically
right.
fit and seeing, you know, you see what happened with COVID and you know, the information that they put out there, well, my opinion isn't 100% true. And you also have to do the research yourself and understand what works for you versus what works for somebody else.
Amen, dude. Because we're all at different spots. We're all come from different backgrounds. Whether you were an athlete when you were younger and you established this physical ability to know pain, or whether you weren't, and it's something that came later in life, we can't have the same protocol for those two people. You know, it's got to be different. We got to start where we are. You know, and that's the biggest thing. But it's just like the analogy of your, you know, going out and shooting your bow. It's got to be reps, and you've got to start at 20 and 30 yards to dial in so that you can reach out to the 60, 80, 100 yard range, you know? And so you have to start where you're at, you know, to go out as a new hunter and try to start, you know, dialing your bow. That's why you don't dial it in at 100. And I think that's a perfect analogy for if somebody's just getting in and trying to be a better steward over their health and their fitness, is start where you're at right now. Like I've already given it to you. Start with knowing how much protein you're getting a day. There's so much technology out there that'll support that. Move your body 3 times a week, get your heart rate up for 30 minutes 3 times a week, and lift some heavy stuff when you can. And if you can do that, you're going to be way better than you were. I'm a huge Jordan Peterson fan, Ryan, you know this. And it's like, if you can aim 1% higher, just aim a little bit higher. That's all you've got to do. And you're going to be better for that. So again, wherever you're at today, just aim a little bit better for tomorrow. And if that's avoiding that one ice cream, or whether that's, you know, getting that extra protein shake in, it's better than you were doing. And I know it sounds like a kind of YouTube cheesy cliche thing to say, but it's like, just do a little bit better tomorrow. And we deserve to be better than we were. And I especially for this group of guys and this group of people that are listening to this, man, I have to tell you, like, I give props to you guys for being the type of people that are willing to do hard things, you know, and whether that's a cold shower in the morning or whether that's getting out and sweating in the mountains. Like I watch these guys. I wish I was as good as you, Ryan, and some of these other guys when it comes to this, but the diligence to go out and get in the hills and put your trail cams up, to be watching these animals all the time. I commend you. You guys can do hard things, and you eat anyway. This is something I tell clients anyway. You're going to make a choice. You're not going to starve. So what are you doing? You're eating, and it just comes into making decisions on what that's going to look like. And when it comes to just delaying gratification. You know what I mean? Like the hardest thing is starting, right? The hardest thing is starting. You're like, I don't feel any different. I've been doing this for a week and I still am exactly where I'm at. No, you're not. You're way further than you were. And that's my point, is just 1% more, 1% higher, and just find those patterns, those consistencies, those rituals, find a plan, execute a plan, just like your finances. You don't just go out and blow all your money. It's calculated, and your health should be the same.
Yeah. Well, you know, Chris Phelps,
Yeah.
right? When there's times where I'll work out with him, and I hate working out with him because he's like the most positive. Like, I mean, I love working out with him for that aspect. He's like the most positive, like upbeat, like you can do it. But whenever I work out with him, it's like, okay, I'm like, we go through, like we get to the end of the reps. It's like one more. And it's like, I'm pushing, I do one more. And then I'm like, okay, good, I'm done. He's like, wait, one more. You got one more in you. You got one more in you. And I'm just going like, man, it's good. But it's those types of things. Like you said, you want to surround yourself with people that are going to be willing to, you know, give you the time and share the knowledge that they've imparted. And I found, as you and I started talking, is if you just ask, like, people want to share the information they have. They want to help you. It's the same thing. It's the reason why I started this podcast, is like our focus is on people that are new to hunting. I know that we have people listening to this show that have been experienced hunters and know a hell of a lot more about hunting than I do. But my hope is that I bring something, whether it's like this type of nutrition, you know, fitness planning. And a lot of these guys out there, like, they're amazing. But you see, I think of like Nate Ellingsworth, like he's gone through like a total transformation. The dude's funny as hell. But like he goes through, I mean, he mocks like the hunting industry, but he's a hunter, and he goes out and hunts and does some pretty cool things. And he's gone through this transformation where, I mean, he was a large man, and what he's been able to do and transform his body has been incredible to watch. And I just recently had stumbled across him. I think I've been like about 2 months ago, he first popped up in my feed, but I'm watching this guy and I'm like, this dude's funny and he's consistent. He has like a routine, and part of it is just putting it out there. Like, you tell people what you're going to do, then you've got to go and do it, because you don't want to be the guy that falls short. And unfortunately, on the nutrition side, I'm the guy that puts it out there and still freaking falls short. But it's something, like, it's my focus from now to the end of the year. I told myself I got 2 months, you know, till the end of the year. We've got good things happening. Like, I want to get, you know, like I said, physically, I finally got my body back into a position to where, like, joints and muscles and everything are working the way they're supposed to, which according to this doc I went into, it's probably been like decades since I've had like all my shoulder muscles working. But yeah, I mean, you got 2 months from now to the end of the year. If this is something that you're interested in, like, make a decision, talk to somebody, get them on your side, like, get into, like, start a chat group, like on Instagram, and add your buddies that are trying to accomplish the same thing. It's no different than, like I said, I went off on a tangent, but I started this hunting podcast for me because I want to learn from these experts that are out there to get better. And people are willing to share the information if you just ask. They also want to see that you're committed to it, right? Like,
Yep.
if the first time you go into a pro shop, they'll sell you a bow if that's what you're there to buy. But the more you go in and start talking, asking questions, they're like, oh, this is somebody who's, you know, committed to it. And then they start imparting more of their wisdom as you ask and giving more of your time. It's the same thing with this health and fitness. To me, it's consistency in everything. And that's where the success lies.
Yeah, I think in the day and age that we live in, there's a lot of ways to fake, you know, what our expertise is, and fake the things that we are capable of. But the way that you are able to move, the strength, to be able to endure hikes and all these things we're talking about, you can't fake that. There's no filter that's going to allow, you know, you to go back and hike 10 miles with a pack on your back. It is going to be what it is. And so you can't fake that. And so I'll reiterate, we owe it to ourselves to find the capacity to do the best that we can physically. and we're all at different levels. We don't all have the same goals and aspirations, but I do have to say from a mountain ops perspective, from, kind of implementing the health supplements, nutrition side of things into the hunting game, to watch some of these big names that we all see that are really promoting this type of endurance, physically fit, kind of the extreme side of hunting, man. It's been rad to see. And I appreciate those guys that have brought those two worlds together, because it's always played a part in hunting. The guys that have been hunting know that. I mean, the extreme natures and the weather, the conditions, the distance and weight that they carry. It's, I remember as a kid, a buddy of mine, he was just a monster of a man. He actually went and played for the Raiders for a little bit, and it's only stories, but I remember him telling me he his packing out an elk with his buddy. They walked out 8 miles. They quartered out that elk, and between the two of them, they carry that, whether it's true or not, I don't know. I'm sure it is, but just that always was impressive to me. Just it's in our nature. It's to be able to be physically capable to do the things that the world has allowed us not to have to be able to do. Hunters appreciate that, because it takes us back to 200 years ago when the side-by-sides weren't a thing. And it was like, man, we had to rely on that to live. And to me, it's an amazing thing. And I don't mean to go off on a tangent there, but we owe it to ourselves to be physically ready for what's in front of us. And it doesn't start 2 days before a hunt. It's got to be something we're preparing for all year. And it makes it a lot easier to prepare for it when we're mostly ready all of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's, I mean, you summed it up perfectly. So my question, I have one last question for you, Brandon, and I really appreciate the time that you've given us today. Talking a little bit more about the supplements, and I know that you're not here to pitch your brand, but if somebody wants to go get supplements, like, I encourage them to go check you out. They can find you online at Wimpey, and then your store is shopiheartmacros.com.
Yeah, just iheartmacros.com will get you there.
iheartmacros.com. So go check it out. So with that, my question is this, is because when people are working out, I mean, there's some guys that are like, you need to be on like 10 different supplements. Like, what would you say are like 3 things? Like, protein obviously is like the easy one to start with. It's a way to supplement the amount of protein that you're taking in. What other things would you recommend for guys that are maybe like in their 30s, 40s, just kind of starting to get into, shape for the first time and starting hunting, and want to be able to kind of make sure that their body's getting what it's need to be successful and recover?
Yeah, well, I think you touched on it a little bit earlier, just about how difficult it can be to get all of that protein in, especially if you're a bigger guy, if you're 200 pounds, 235 pounds, being able to put that amount of meat down, that animal meat like that, it's not always easy. It's a job. It's a chore to be able to do that. And so protein powder, a whey protein is going to be something that's going to be, again, think of the name, it's a supplement. It's adding that increased benefit. It's a tool in the tool belt, and you should use it if you need to. So a protein, going back to the high school days, everyone's heard about creatine. Creatine is the most well-studied supplement on the market, with amazing benefits, all based around, muscle recovery, muscle endurance. They've actually shown in studies lately that it has a big element to memory, to the cognitive function. And so it's an amazing supplement, protein, creatine. And then I'm a huge fan of amino acids. If you can get an essential amino acid, it's going to be a huge, if you can think of it as just far as when you're using your muscles, you're digging yourself a hole. If you can imagine digging yourself a hole, and that's basically hurting that muscle while it's being used. It's taking it catabolic, if you will. To take an amino acid, say during a workout, is going to keep that at level ground, even during an intense workout. I love an amino acid. Those 3 things right there, just for somebody that's just in a basic, health routine. I mean, we could get into gut health and all that kind of stuff, but and then endurance, I've got a buddy that owns a supplement company as well. That's a big hunter, and they've got kind of endurance supplements that'll help you with your hydration. That's going to be a big thing, especially if you're in the backcountry, if you're sweating a lot, keeping yourself hydrated. So I know that's more than 3 things, but I would encourage a good hydration, whether it's, just a salt pack or something like that, keeping yourself hydrated.
Even just electrolytes.
Electrolytes. Yep.
Yeah. Brandon, appreciate the time, brother.
You got it,
It's
man.
always good to talk with you. You guys stay after it out there. Be hungry. Keep hunting. And take care of yourself. Take care of your families. Until we see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Hey, guys, want to thank you for sticking around and watching the podcast. As always, be sure to hit that subscribe button, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Leave us a review, and we'd love for you to share it with your friends. Also want to tell you about Hunt Stealth, and we are giving away a pheasant hunt guided experience. It's at the Pleasant Valley Hunting Preserve. Some of the world's best wired-haired German pointers are going to be out there helping guide you on your pheasant hunt. You're also going to get a 1-year membership to the club, as well as Cata Sports is providing a 1-person hammock. We've got 2 tripod stools, a Northward Series backpacking tent for 1 person, a Horizon folding cot, and a 60-quart ice vault that's got on wheels. So it's super, super cool package. Also, ReadyWise, our good friends over there, are giving us 3 3-day adventure bag meal kits for you to take out for you to use on your next adventure. So head on over to huntstealth.com, and for every $1 spent, you get 1 entry into that contest. Again, thanks for listening.